on a historic scale, deport foreign national offenders faster than ever, and speed up our courts.
And therefore I am looking at ID cards or digital ID.
Hello and welcome back to Visa News Daily, your go-to channel for UK immigration news updates. The weekend has passed and we are beginning a new week, Monday, September 8th, 2025, with a packed bulletin for everyone. The political landscape in Westminster has been shaken up, with major implications for immigration policy. There's a lot to get through, so let's proceed straight to the headlines for today. UK government appoints Shabana Mahmood as new Muslim Home Secretary following Angela Rayner's resignation. Mahmood's first statement promises to return all migrants to their origin and addresses small boat arrivals. Parliamentary debate on 10-year ILR pathway scheduled in Westminster today, updates to follow. Defence Secretary John Healey announces consideration of military barracks for temporary migrant accommodation. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is exploring a digital ID scheme for British nationals to combat illegal migration. So, if you've not already, subscribe to our channel. And let's get straight into the news in full. Our top story. A dramatic cabinet reshuffle has seen Prime Minister Keir Starmer appoint a new Muslim Pakistani Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, following the shock resignation of his Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. The reshuffle was triggered late last week after Angela Rayner, who also served as the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, resigned from the government. Her departure followed the conclusion of a report that found she had broken the ministerial code in relation to underpaying tax on a property. This created a significant vacancy at the top of government and prompted the Prime Minister to make sweeping changes to his top team. In what is being seen as a clear signal of a tougher stance on immigration and security, Keir Starmer moved the previous Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, to the Foreign Office and promoted Shabana Mahmood to one of the four, quote, great offices of state. And the new Home Secretary is wasting no time in setting out her stall.
On a historic scale, deport foreign national offenders faster than ever, and speed up our courts. Yet still, despite all that, we must reform sentencing too.
In her first public statements over the weekend, Shabana Mahmood has promised a significant crackdown on illegal migration, vowing to restore order to the UK's borders. Her immediate focus appears to be on the small boats crisis and the full implementation of existing returns agreements. In a statement on Sunday, she described the ongoing small boat crossings as utterly unacceptable and declared that protecting the UK border is her absolute priority. This tough talk is backed by a renewed focus on the UK-France returns agreement, a pilot scheme that came into effect on August 5, 2025. This treaty allows the UK to return some migrants who cross the Channel to France, in exchange for the UK accepting a matching number of asylum seekers via a new legal route. The previous government had indicated that returns under this scheme were expected to begin in September. Now, the new Home Secretary has stated she expects the first returns to happen imminently. However, it's important to note the scale of this pilot scheme. Initial reports suggest a target of returning around 50 people per week, a fraction of the total number arriving. The context for this urgency is stark. This past Saturday, September the 6th, saw 1,097 people arrive in small boats, bringing the total for the year to over 29,000, a record high for this point in the year. The pressure is on the new Home Secretary to show that her approach can deliver results where others have struggled. In what could be one of the most significant domestic policy shifts in a generation, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is reportedly considering a new digital ID scheme for all British nationals.
We hear your ministers talking about digital ID cards, for instance. Controversial, but something could make a big difference. Do you see that as a viable prospect?
Yeah, look, I'm determined to stop people making that crossing across the channel and to get people out of our hotels. And therefore I am looking at ID cards or digital ID, because we do need to look at the pull factors. I've also instructed the Home Office and the MOD to work at pace on military sites and accommodation, and I've asked for the military planners to be embedded in that process.
The proposal, nicknamed the Brit Card by the influential think tank Labour Together, is being seriously examined within Downing Street as a tool to tackle illegal migration. The idea is that a universal mandatory digital credential, likely stored on a smartphone app, would be required to prove an individual's right to live and work in the UK. Supporters argued this would make right to work and right to rent checks much simpler and more effective, making it significantly harder for those without legal status to operate in the UK. In a speech back in May, Keir Starmer warned that without stronger rules, the UK risked becoming an island of strangers, and he has consistently linked a failure to control migration to downward pressure, wages, and public services. However, the idea of national identity cards is historically one of the most controversial topics in British politics. A previous attempt by the Tony Blair government was ultimately scrapped by the subsequent coalition government in 2010 amid fierce opposition from civil liberties groups, who raised concerns about state surveillance, privacy, and data security. Critics are already warning that a new digital ID system could resurrect the database state and amplify the problems of the hostile environment which led to the Windrush scandal. While the government insists this is not yet firm policy, the fact that it is being actively considered by senior figures in Number 10 shows just how far the administration is willing to go in its mission to get a grip on immigration. In a development that will be watched closely by thousands of visa holders across the country, a crucial debate is scheduled to take place in Parliament later today. MPs will debate two petitions that have gathered huge public support concerning the proposed extension of the route to indefinite leave to remain, or ILR. Let me correct the record from our initial headline. This debate will not take place in a court but in Westminster Hall, a debating chamber of the Houses of Parliament. This is standard procedure for petitions that gain significant public traction. The main petition, which has over 163,000 signatures, calls on the government to scrap its proposal to increase the ILR qualification period from 5 years to 10 years for skilled worker visa holders. The petitioners argue that changing the rules for those already on this visa track is deeply unfair, and that any such changes should only apply to new applicants. A second petition, with more than 108,000 signatures, specifically demands that British national overseas visa holders from Hong Kong be exempted from these proposed changes. Under parliamentary rules, any petition that receives over 100,000 signatures must be considered for a debate. Today's debate will be opened by a member of the Petitions Committee and will feature contributions from MPs across the House before a government minister is required to respond to the points raised. It's important to understand that this debate will not end in a binding vote to change the policy. However, it serves as a powerful platform to air the significant concerns of the public and to put direct pressure on the government to justify or reconsider its position. The outcome and the minister's response will be a key indicator of the government's direction on legal migration pathways. We will, of course, bring you the full details of that debate in our bulletin tomorrow. Now to the government's plans for housing asylum seekers. On Sunday, Defence Secretary John Healey announced that the government is looking really hard at using military barracks and other non-military sites for the temporary accommodation of migrants. This move is a direct response to two major pressures: the record number of small boat arrivals and the widespread public and political discontent over the high cost and use of hotels to house asylum seekers. Speaking to Sky News, Mr. Healey confirmed he is working with the new Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood on the proposal, stating it is part of an effort to restore public confidence in the country's ability to control its borders. This is not an entirely new idea. The previous Conservative government also used former military sites, including Napier Barracks in Kent and a former RAF base in Essex. However, that policy was fraught with controversy, facing legal challenges and criticism from human rights groups over poor and prison-like conditions. For the Labour government, this represents a significant policy pivot. Just a year ago, the party was reportedly developing plans to end the use of such sites. The new Home Secretary's predecessor, Yvette Cooper, had also closed the controversial Bibby Stockholm barge. This new consideration of military sites signals a much tougher, more enforcement-led approach to accommodation, moving away from hotels and rented housing and towards more basic, contained facilities. This is a week that is shaping up to be pivotal for the future of UK immigration policy. The themes are clear: enforcement, control, and a tougher stance across the board. What are your thoughts on these developments? Do you support the move to a 10-year ILR path? Is a digital ID card a necessary tool or a step too far? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Visa News Daily for the latest update. We'll be back tomorrow with more news, including the crucial outcome of today's parliamentary debate. Thanks for watching.